So, years ago around when I, 19, was I think about 7 my great-grandmother passed away. She split inheritance money in her will from me, my mother, 39, my aunt, 45, and grandmother, 69. However, for me as it was written it was stated I would only get the money at 18. I'm now 19 and somehow they gave the money to my mother. She never told me about this until I graduated high school. I asked why I didn't get mine now that I'm of age, and she stated, well, you'll just spend the money. I understand where she came from since people my age would spend it, but I am a little furious that I'm now in debt for college and I could have used that money for student loans or maybe even a new car if something happens as an example. After asking to give it to me, they each refused despite I politely asked, so I decided to take this to court after seeing a copy saying I would get the money at 18, and now everyone in my family is angered at me for standing up for myself. I believe if it's legally stated then yes you should fulfill, but I could be wrong as I'm young and I don't understand, plus they are my family and I love them, but I don't feel this is fair and legal. Am I the idiot for suing my family over inheritance money? Not the idiot. If they give you the money left for you, then they wouldn't have to go to court. If she saved it in a specific account that you could have access to, then it wouldn't be a big deal. My mother did something similar with the child support she got from my dad. In their divorce, it was an account in my name at a bank that both shared. He could only transfer money in, she and I could transfer money out. In the state we lived in, he had to pay until I was 21. My mother had to have every withdrawal from the account over $200 a day verified with my PIN to say I agreed to it. Once I turned 21, I got all the money transferred to my main bank account. Assuming the will was written by someone competent, the money should have been left with your mother in trust. This means that she looks after the money for you as stated in the will. For example, she holds the money for you until you are 18. There are various laws governing what protections there are for money left in trust. As others have said, contact a lawyer, but get a copy of the will first if you can. Not the idiot. She is going directly against a will. People who say that you will be irresponsible with money are usually the ones with terrible finances. Try to redirect their mistakes onto the one they tell it to. Just make sure that if you do take her, that you're prepared for the consequences that may come with them. In case of a backlash. Possibly from other family members and especially by the woman who took your money. There will be a narcissistic tendency to manipulate through guilt, and if that isn't going to work, all out rage. I, 27, have custody of my niece who is 9. My sister passed away 2 years ago, her dad split years ago, and my parents are deceased, so she came to me. My niece has cerebral palsy, and while she doesn't have an extreme case, she does require some extra care. She's an amazing little girl who loves school and likes to talk, so moving her seat won't help. My boyfriend, 30, lives with me and is great with her, but his parents have a big problem with him being with me. They don't think he should be saddled with someone else's kid. They have also said I should make more of an effort to do things they'd like me to do, but then say I threw my life away by taking in my niece and I should have let her go to foster care if I am not willing to meet some demand they have. I try not to have much contact with them. Here's the problem. His mom called me and wants me to do something with my niece so I can show up for Thanksgiving. The way she said it honestly sounded like she was talking about boarding a pet. I said unfortunately I wouldn't be able to make it. She called me a terrible girlfriend and said I made no effort at all to make them happy and constantly hurting her feelings by refusing to compromise. Except her idea of a compromise is me doing what she wants. I was fed up at this point and said I was sorry she felt that way, but my niece was my priority. She got upset, called me a rude idiot, and called my niece a slur against disabled people who should have been put in foster care. I immediately hung up and blocked his family members from being able to contact me in any way. My boyfriend was really angry when he found out my side, which was a very different version than the totally fabricated version his mom told him. They had a huge fight and now his family and a couple of his friends are saying he needs to leave me because I made already rocky relationship worse by being an unreasonable idiot, but I don't see how I did anything but turn down a Thanksgiving request that doesn't work for my family. My boyfriend actually thinks it's kinda funny that they think I have the power to control his decisions. I'm not the idiot for not being willing to leave my niece for his family, am I? Not the idiot. Who are these sick people? They need to literally shut their mouths about your niece and your choices to care for her and hang out with her. They need serious help. I can clearly see why you wouldn't want to hang out with them, whether you're with your niece or not. Sorry, but your boyfriend is also an idiot for minimizing the way his family speaks to you and about your niece. Not the idiot. There's a lot I want to say about this. First, taking in your niece. If my math is right, you were just 25, and you not only took in a child, you took in a special needs child. You're amazing. Your boyfriend. I'm glad he's on your side, but I wonder, if he knows they treat you and your niece, what does he do to minimize your contact with? Because if he's just letting it go on, then he's an idiot to a certain degree. His mother was already awful, but she became then irredeemably idiot the moment she decided to use abusive language and use slurs towards your niece. Don't let others try to convince you it's your fault. She was the idiot. You're most definitely not the idiot. You're not the idiot. Your boyfriend's mother is an extremely inconsiderate person. She clearly didn't like you from the get-go and tried to find a reason to hate on you. Not showing up to Thanksgiving is not that big of a deal in my eyes, considering the cause, and if your mother-in-law really wanted you to be there, she would figure something out. As long as your boyfriend see your side and understand that you are in the right, have no worries. It's sad that his mother doesn't see your niece as something but a burden. My sister unfortunately passed away 2 months before their wedding day was set last year. I hate traditions and I hate the concept of having someone give me away at my wedding. The problem is that my parents seem to see my wedding as an opportunity to get what they tragically lost when my sister died. They hate everything about my wedding. There will be no flower girls, there will be no ring bearer since me, and my fiancé will have them in our pockets. I'm not going to be wearing a white dress, and we will have no bridesmaids or groomsmen. The biggest thing with them is the fact that I don't want to be giving away. They erupted and called me selfish when I told them this, and then they said, "We are already compromising and letting you have your way with breaking a lot of other tradition, but this one is too important to your father and myself." I told them that they are not letting me do anything. This is my wedding, and I'm the one paying for everything along with my fiancé. Then they started going on about how this isn't for me anymore. This is for my father and the opportunity he lost when my sister died, and that if I don't let him walk me down, he'll never have an opportunity to walk his daughter down the aisle again. I told them that with all due respect, I don't care about opportunities they are losing, and that my wedding is not an excuse for them to live out the opportunities they lost when my sister died, and that if they can't see that in that, if they can't respect my wishes, then maybe they shouldn't come at all. Am I the idiot? This all happened in February and we haven't spoken to each other since. I feel a bit relieved, if I'm honest, and I don't miss them. Not the idiot. I feel bad for you and them, but your wedding is not for them. It's super selfish of them to think, and crazy that they'd consciously ask you to try and fill that role. Have they considered how you'd feel if every time you think of your wedding, it'll make you resent your late sister and your parents for making you do something you don't want to do? If you want to throw them a bone, since you don't like the traditional stuff, maybe you could come up with more original way to give him a role. I'm really surprised that anyone is saying otherwise. It is incredibly inappropriate for your parents to treat your wedding as anything other than what it is, your wedding. You're not a substitute child, and it's not a substitute wedding. And to be honest, it sounds like they would be pulling this crap and trying to control your wedding either way, and are just using your sister's death as a convenient excuse, which is alarming. They need counseling to learn to deal with their grief appropriately, but in the meantime it makes perfect sense you'd want nothing to do with them. Using you as a proxy for your dead sister, and then calling you selfish. It takes a lot to top the self-centeredness involved in the theory that not dictating every aspect of someone's wedding is gracious compromise on their part, but that does. On the plus side, they did display a degree of honesty and self-awareness when they outright said that your wedding was no longer about you, but about them. Most people who believe that are slightly less willing to say it in so many words, or even admit to it when called out. Still total idiots for it, of course. I'm currently out of work because of restrictions, server in a town that only allows takeout or delivery right now, and I've been taking on odd jobs. I'm in an okay position, so I'm just trying to get a little extra for just in case. My aunt knows this, and she, bless her heart, decided to try to help me. I thought she meant looking in her town's job ads or asking around at her work, so you all can probably guess why I was extremely confused when I got home from camping to a ton of emails from aunt's friends and relatives about baby blankets. For background, I've been crocheting and knitting since I was a little girl, and when aunt's 2 children were born I made them both baby blankets as baby shower gifts. These blankets were about 4 feet by 5 feet, enough to last through childhood, if necessary, complex with lots of colors, single crochet graphicons, and they easily took me around 30 hours of work each. Back to the problem. I read through the messages, and it seems my aunt was promising them a custom baby blanket done in 2-3 weeks for $50. There is no possible way I could work that fast or charge that little. Materials cost between $35–$75 depending on the yarn, so I emailed all the women back apologizing for the mix-up and letting them know I wouldn't be able to complete their orders as promised by aunt. I did tell them I would be willing to make the blankets, but for around $120 plus depending on size, materials, difficulty, etc., and within 5–8 weeks with a waiting list. On the bright side, 2 were completely understanding, the other 6, not so much. One said that she was devastated because her grandma was supposed to make her baby a blanket but had recently died, and she was so excited when aunt said I could make her one like her grandma's in time for her baby shower, 3 weeks away, and I feel so bad about getting her hopes up like that. Aunt now is angry at me because apparently everyone is mad at her too, and she was just trying to help me out. She thinks I'm being ungrateful, and I should have just done it because blankets aren't very difficult to make and to save face. She also thinks $120 is too much to ask, there are much cheaper ones on Etsy, and she's worried about how this whole thing might affect some of her friends with postpartum depression. That worries me too. I'm so pissed at her for this, but I understand why she did it and I know she was just trying to help me out, but I feel terrible and like a total jerk because of how many people are hurt and upset. Am I the idiot for not making the blankets and upsetting everyone? Not the idiot at all. It was a misunderstanding at first, but now that she understands the reality of the situation, that is a totally unreasonable ask on your aunt's part. This doesn't really sound like it's about helping you out anymore as much as it is doing a solid for her friends. There are cheaper ones on Etsy also shows she either doesn't value your craftsmanship or understand how large and varied Etsy is. Also, invoking postpartum depression is weirdly manipulative for such a benign conflict. You can't do it in that time for that cost, end of story. She is the idiot for pressuring you any further. OP, you sound like a beautiful person character-wise. You feel bad for those people out of pure empathy, even though you did nothing wrong. Your aunt successfully tricked you into thinking that it's partly your fault, too. When in reality, she just messed up big time. This whole situation is entirely on her. She could have told you about her idea beforehand and asked you about the conditions you'd feel comfortable with, the 8 weeks with a waiting list thing, and also the price for example. That would have been the right thing to do, if you ask me. As someone who makes quilts, not the idiot. Hobbies like this are expensive, and that doesn't even account for the time spent actually making them. Your aunt was asking you to lose money and use up every free waking minute for 3 weeks. How is that helping out? She is doubling down, because she screwed up, she wanted to look good out of this to her coworkers and now she doesn't. Make the blankets for the ones who are happy to comply with your realistic expectations, and forget the rest. If they're so easy to make, why aunt can't make her own for the disappointed women? So, some background is needed here. I'm 19 and have worked at the leisure center in my town since I was 16. It has a gym, a pool, a function room hall and a cafe. Up until recently my job was cleaning the gym and hall and working in or cleaning the cafe, but obviously it's been closed for a while and I've been on furlough. Thing is my parents' house is very toxic and it reached a point where I had to get out, which I couldn't afford to do on furlough alone. I took on 2 new cleaning jobs to cover my living expenses. The leisure center opened again last week, all apart from the cafe part, and I realized just how much I'd be juggling now between work and university. Since the 2 new jobs pay significantly better than this one, but I can use all the extra hours I can squeeze in, I elected to stop working in the cafe when it reopens because I think those hours will tip it over into too many territory. I told this to one of the 2 cafe managers and she said that's fine. So, the issue. This morning the other cafe manager messaged me about reopening and stuff and asking if I'm okay to work the same hours I was before. I replied saying, "Sorry, I think there's been some missed communication. I told other manager I won't be working the cafe anymore as I've got 2 other jobs now and it's just too many hours." She was not happy. She began complaining to me that the cafe is short-staffed as is and they don't have another cleaner on hand to do it. At one point in my life I'd have folded and said I'd do it, but I'm trying to be better about advocating for myself, so I said, "I'm sorry about the inconvenience, but I had my notice okayed and sorting a replacement isn't my problem." She then got upset and called me rude and insolent and said she's going to report me to the overall general manager of the place for my conduct. I'm really beginning to panic that I'm going to get into big trouble for this, and if I could have handled this better. Am I the idiot for what I said? Not the idiot. And I quote you, "Sorting a replacement isn't my problem." That is 100% correct. You are not obligated to sort out that stuff, that is the task of the staff manager. I don't know when and why this developed into a trend, but normal staff is not accountable for getting replacements or organizing the shifts. Normal staff is accountable for getting their task done in the required quality and speed. That's it. So no, you are not the idiot for telling her that this is not your problem and reminding her that she gets paid for doing exactly that. You did everything appropriately in preparing to leave, and I think the phrasing you used in advocating for yourself sounds firm but necessary. This person was trying to play on your guilt and it was working, so good for you in not caving. Now she's using threats against you, which shows she's just upping her own bad behavior, and again, it's working, you feel guilty. Don't panic. She has little to gain by reporting you, and even if she does you can reply, if you're questioned, that you had prepared everything appropriately and that a response was inappropriate. Not the idiot. However, if this situation ever happens again, try to use it to your advantage. Instead of "I can no longer work in the cafe as I work 2 other jobs." Try "Unfortunately, I had to take on 2 other jobs to make ends meet while on furlough. Well, I would love to quit one of those positions and go back to working in the cafe, those jobs pay more. If there was a way you could match that pay rate, I would be happy to take some hours in the cafe that work with my class schedule." If you've been with the center for 3 years, you've been a good employee and you elected to come back once the furlough ended, despite quickly finding employment elsewhere that paid better. This isn't an unfair or unreasonable request and could allow you to make more money while working less hours.